If this is the first time you ever applied for a passport, this video is for you. Applying for a passport can be difficult. There are so many steps in the process you have to get just right, or you'll risk a delay or denial in the already long process of obtaining a passport. So I'll be teaching you how to apply for a passport and my experience getting my passport. How's everyone doing? It's Calbiang here, bringing you another video to help you make the right choices. I want to start by letting you know this is my experience with a US passport as a US citizen. I don't know how to help you obtain a passport in France. Sorry. Well, first things first, you will want to obtain an application form. Go to the Department of State's website, link in the description, and scroll down to the section that says Application for a US Passport. Make sure it says DS11 somewhere next to it. That is the form you will need to fill out. There'll be two options you can use to fill out this form, using a form filler or a PDF. So for the PDF, it's basically a blank document you can download that you can either fill out by hand or on most computers. Simple. I recommend filling out the DS11 this way if you don't have an at-home printer, because you'll be putting a lot of sensitive information on this form, and many public printers have memory on them. So if somebody wanted to, after you're done printing out your DS11 with all your information on it, sometimes it's possible for someone else to come by and reprint the document without your knowledge. And I would hope you wouldn't want your information in the hands of a stranger. But if you do have an at-home printer, I would recommend using the form filler, because let's be honest, most people's handwriting suck. Like this, I think I can only make out 3 of those words. Surely your process is going to go by a lot faster if they know what you wrote. So to get started, click on form filler, and real quick, this information I'm going to go over also applies if you print out the PDF too. Read through and check that you have read the Privacy and Computer Fraud and Abuse Act's notices and disclaimers. Then click submit. When the page loads, on the left side will be a section titled Fill Out Form Online and Print. Click submit in that box, then just fill out that form. Your first, middle, and last name, your date, city, country, and state of birth, your social security number, select your gender and height, your hair and eye color, your job if you have one, and employer or school. If you don't have a job, type in not employed. If you're filling out an application for a child, type in child, and if you're a student, type in student. Then click next. Fill out your mailing address. Select if this is your permanent address, yes or no. If no, they'll want you to type in your permanent address. Then select how you want to be contacted, either by mail, email, or both. Type in your email address, then type in your phone number and select if that number is your home, work, or cell phone number. Then hit next. Now it'll bring up a page if you have any international trips soon. If you do have a plan to travel, like within 2 weeks, call the number below. If you're traveling later and can generally wait about 10 weeks, just type in your planned travel dates, return, and the country you plan on visiting. If you have no plans, just click on next. Now if you want to, you can type in your emergency contact, their first and last name, their address, and their telephone number and their relationship to you. But if you don't have one, just click on next. Now you'll have to choose if you ever had a passport book, passport card, or both. Whichever option you decide, a box will appear. Except if you select none, then just click on next. But if you had a passport before, like before you were 16, it asks if you still have your passport, if you have it but it got damaged, you don't have it because it's lost, or you don't have it because it was stolen. If you select you don't have it, you'll also have to select whether or not you reported your passport lost or stolen. Type in when you received your most recent passport, and your first, middle, and last name as printed on the passport, along with the book number. Of course, this only applies if you still have the old passport, or if you know all the information on it. If you don't know, don't fill it out. Then click on next. Now you'll have to fill in your birth parents' information. First, middle, and last name, date and place of their birth, their gender, and whether or not they are a US citizen. And do that for each birth parent. If you don't know, select unknown. Then choose if you have been married, yes or no. If yes, fill in your spouse's or ex-spouse's information, their full name, date and place of birth, whether or not they are a US citizen, your date of your most recent marriage, and whether or not you have been widowed or divorced. If you have been widowed or divorced, type in the date of when that happened. Then click next. Now you'll have to type in other first and last names you used before. If you don't have any other different names since birth, click on next. Finally, check everything over. And double check it, because if you print this out and want to make handwritten changes, it could slow down the process of getting your passport. You could always print out another form with the new changes, but you'll have to start from the beginning. Then click on next. Now select which passport option you would like. The difference between passport book and passport card is the passport card is cheaper, but you can't use it for international air travel. Only ground travel to and from Canada and Mexico, and at seaports like the Caribbean and Bermuda. However, I would recommend getting a passport book, because the passport book covers everything the passport card covers and any international travel allowed by a US citizen. So if you do choose to go with a passport book, you'll also have the option to get the larger book. For most people, you won't need this. These larger books are made for people who travel internationally frequently, at least once a month. But it doesn't cost you any extra, so that'll be your decision. After you're done selecting which passport you want, you'll have to choose how fast you want it. The regular service, according to the State Department, will take about 8 to 11 weeks. If you want to pay an extra $60, you can have it processed in about half that time, 5 to 7 weeks. Another option is to have your passport processed faster at an agency. But there aren't that many locations in the United United States. And you'll need to provide proof that you'll be traveling internationally within 14 days. It's all just a headache, so try to plan ahead and get your passport as early as possible. That was the processing time. The next section will ask if you want your documents and passport to be mailed out faster. Normal speed, according to the State Department, is 10 business days or 2 weeks for your passports and documents to be mailed. Or as of right now, you can pay an extra $18.32 to have your documents and passports mailed in 1 to 2 days when it's done processing. The next section will ask if you want to do a file search. What is a file search? Well, wearing a shirt with the American flag and pronouncing America isn't enough to qualify you as a US citizen quite yet. So the government needs the originals, not copies of something like your birth certificate or naturalization certificate. So what a file search is, if you don't want to send in proof of your citizenship because you have a reason to hold on to your birth certificate right now, so the government will charge you a fee of $150 to search themselves for a document they made and gave to you. I recommend just sending in proof of your citizenship. $150 is kinda steep. Next thing is just letting you know, no matter where you go in person to turn in your documents, you'll owe a mandatory fee of $35. Finally, check over your total and click next. Then the last page is what other things you need to apply for a passport. Read through that if you want to, or scroll down to the bottom of the page and I'll explain it to you. When you get to the bottom of the page, there'll be instructions on how to print your form. Make sure to print your DS11 form on a single-sided paper. Make sure all your information is correct and everything is clear with no smudges or anything like that. If you can't get rid of the smudges, you might have to go with the PDF handwritten route. Click you have read and acknowledge the steps and information contained above, and click on print form. Make sure you have a PDF program. If you don't, download Adobe Acrobat using the blue link text below print form. And if you notice, the form filler document looks exactly the same as the PDF document you could have downloaded in the beginning. But instead of the hard to read handwriting, it's clear to read text. And for both of them, that blue section, do not fill that out. You'll fill that out when you apply for a passport in person. And congratulations, you filled out the DS11, the most complicated and time-consuming part, in my opinion, of applying for a passport. Next, you'll have to gather 2 physical documents, or a couple depending on your situation. First one being evidence of your US citizenship and an approved ID with a photo of you on it. For most people, that'll mean your birth certificate or your certificate of citizenship. Fun fact, if you don't have a birth certificate but you were born in the US, you can apply for a letter of no record. You'll have to bring 2 public documents in addition to this, which can range from your early school records to your baptism certificate. So that's pretty weird. In the second document would be an in-state fully valid driver's license with a photo. Learner's permits, state IDs, or a temporary driver's license, you'll probably be asked to bring a secondary approved ID. I'll include a link in the description of the approved documents you need to bring. After you decide which documents you want to bring, you'll also need to make a photocopy of the approved IDs front and back on an 8-inch by 11-inch paper. Even though you're making photocopies of the ID, you must bring the ID in person too. You'll also need to make a photocopy of your citizenship document and mail the original. Don't worry, you'll get it back, but just realize you won't have your citizenship document for about 11 weeks at the latest. After your documents are done, you'll also need to bring a passport photo. You could take it yourself, but I would just recommend going to a drugstore with a photo section like CVS or Walgreens. They'll usually charge around $15 at the time this video is made. Who knows how much it will cost next year with all this inflation. And I recommend going somewhere because there are many strict guidelines you have to follow, like has to be a clear photo that was taken in the last 6 months, no glasses, no selfies, plain white background, no big shadow, head has to be centered. That was only some of the requirements for a passport photo. But you still want to try to make your own passport photo. I'll leave a link in the description of the requirements you need to follow. Just a warning, if you submit a photo that doesn't work, your passport could be delayed. And lastly, the last thing you need to bring is your payment. There are 2 different payments you need to make. One payment will go to the US Department of State, and the second payment will go to the place you are applying for your passport. For the payment to the Department of State, I recommend bringing a checkbook. So if you filled out the check wrong, you can just write another. You could also pay with money order, but if you calculated the numbers wrong, you'll have to come back later, thereby delaying the passport process. Besides, you'll have to pay a fee if you get a money order. Compared to a checkbook, you only have to pay for once, or with some banks, they'll even give you a checkbook for free, like Charles Schwab. And you'll be surprised how many times, even now, you need a checkbook in your adult life. And for the second payment, they'll also be able to take checks and money orders, along with cash. Some places will require the payment to be exactly what they need, so keep that in mind if you bring cash or a money order. And some places, like a post office, will take credit cards, which is the way I recommend the most, so you can earn some cash back or points while paying the service fee. To know what you're going to pay, you have 2 options. You can either look at this fee chart and do the math yourself, or use a fee calculator. I'll leave a link in the description. To use the fee calculator, click on it, then select which country you are currently living in, enter your date of birth, and choose yes or no if you ever had a passport before. Then click next. Choose which passport you want to apply for, passport book, passport card, or both. After you select it, it will ask if you want to pay for faster processing. Then if you want to pay for faster shipping, if that option is available to you. For passport cards, you can't get that shipped any faster. Then scroll down and click calculate. It'll show you how much each option will cost and what your final totals are. So the first amount next to the red text is what you owe to the Department of State. You'll use a check or a money order with that written amount and address it to the Department of State. The second red text, the execution fee, should be $35. It's the second payment you would owe to the facility you're giving your documents over to, like a post office. You can also get a check for this one or use a credit card if the place you're going to doesn't charge any extra fees like a post office. And that's basically everything you need to bring and get prepared before going in person to apply for your passport. Now for finding a location, all you have to do is go to this page, link in the description. Type in your zip code or state and city, choose how many places you want to show up on the list or everything within a certain mile radius from your location. Choose if you need it to be handicap accessible, if you need your passport photo to be taken during your visit, or if you just like a place nearby that can take passport photos. Then click search, and a bunch of places should appear. Click on whichever location works best for you, and all the detailed information about that location will pop up. As you may notice, some locations require an appointment while others do not. If they do require an appointment, just follow the instructions in the comments. Like for example, this post office requires an appointment. So go to the USPS website, schedule an appointment, fill in all the information and make an appointment, and it's that easy. Remember, when going to these places, bring your documents we've talked about. The filled out DS-11 form, passport photo, citizenship document, photo ID, a checkbook, and a credit card if you want. If you forget anything, you might have to make another appointment. Now that's all good and all, but what does the passport process actually look like? Well, my story wasn't all that special, not like my global entry interview experience, but this is what really happened to me. When I applied for a passport in 2019, this was actually the third passport I've had in my life, but the first two were a child's passport. In 2019, I was older than 16, so I had to go through the same process as all of you, and it was literally the first time my wife has ever applied for a passport, so everything was new to her. Normally, my mom taught me, we should have been able to complete the whole process at the library, as long as we had a checkbook and the required documents, because the library we went to was able to do walk-ins, had a copier, and had a place to take photos. So we brought nothing but a checkbook and our birth certificates and a driver's license. My wife actually had to bring her out-of-state learner's permit and her social security card since her ID was out of state. But for some reason, neither of us can remember, we couldn't apply for a passport there. But the librarian was kind enough to give us DS-11 forms. So we took them home to fill them out and wrote the same required information I was telling you earlier. We chose to get a standard passport book since we wanted to travel by plane and other countries that aren't America Light and Mexico. And we weren't going to travel internationally that often. After we filled out the DS-11, we decided to go to the local post office instead. But we didn't want to chance they couldn't take photos. So we went to our local Walgreens to get our photos taken. Pretty simple process. We asked an employee if we could get our passports photos taken. He told us to give him a minute to set up and stand in the photo section of the store. After he was ready, he pulled down a white background screen and told me to take off my glasses and look straight at the camera he had in his hand. He took a couple of photos of us and walked behind the counter and printed out 4 2x2 photos of us. You'll only need to use one of them. And checked us out, costed about $30 total. Then we headed over to the post office with all of our documents paper clipped together. And this is important, don't staple anything. We waited in line with everyone else. When we got to the counter, we told the clerk we wanted to apply for a passport. They told us to step out of line and they'll call someone out that does passports. So that's what we did. We waited maybe about 15 minutes before someone came to us. They checked over our documents, but then there was another problem. My wife's name didn't match on all of her documents because she just recently changed her last name. And the post clerk didn't know if a marriage document would be enough to prove her name for a passport. So we left and updated both her learner's permit and social security card to the updated last name. That process was about another 2 weeks. After, we went back to the same post office to try again. Oh yeah, by the way, I didn't know any better at the time. Don't do what I'm doing in this story. Follow the steps I was talking about earlier. There'll be less headaches and time wasted. We were just lucky the 2 places we tried were able to do walk-ins. So we waited in line again and told the post clerk we wanted to apply for a passport. This time the clerk we talked to was the one in charge of passports. So we handed over our documents with our marriage certificate just in case. They checked everything over. It was good. They weren't sure if we needed to send the marriage certificate, but they would send it anyways. Better to send more than less. Then they told us to wait a bit because they had to make photocopies of our IDs and our citizenship documents. Again, don't follow the story I'm telling you, be prepared and already have the photocopies ready. After they were done copying, they filled out the blue section and attached our photos to the DS-11. After they were finished, they told us to sign on the line where it says applicant legal signature. Then they gave us back our IDs but kept our marriage certificate and our birth certificates. Then told us to address each check to the US Department of State with a payment of $130 and placed each of our applications, documents, and checks into a separate vanilla envelope. Then they told us to go back to the counter to get get us checked out. The cost they charged us was a total of $70, and I used my credit card to cover the charges. We didn't pay for any faster processing or shipping because we didn't need it, and then all we had to do was wait. Even though officially it's supposed to take longer, my wife and I received our passports in about 3 weeks. It's not guaranteed this will happen to you, this is just what happened for me. With our birth certificates and other documents came in about a week after we got our passports. And that's basically the experience in how to apply for a passport. You want to know what I use to protect my passport and the credit cards I have in my passport wallet when I travel internationally? Check out this video. Subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'll see you later.